welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today will be a very different kind of episode because I'm not chatting with a guest about his or her story. Today, we're gonna hear multiple stories because I wanted to give a shot to more of you to be able to tell your own. When I asked you to send me your story, my demand was very specific. I asked you to tell me how you became a Sherio and what was the song that made you a Sherio. And while many of you knew what this song was immediately, some didn't even remember how they became a Sherio. So in the end, I couldn't really ask from you to stick to the format I wanted because we are all absolutely different, even if we can all agree on one thing is we love Ed Sheeran. I think this will prove one thing. No matter where we are from, what age we are or whatever it is, we have so many stories in common and I hope you will relate to them. It's important to me to give a voice to everyone, especially for the people who aren't as loud online or don't feel as important because they don't have a fan account. Because these things doesn't matter at all. Other countries are definitely not represented in this episode, so if you like this one, let me know and I will make a second one to give another chance to more listeners around the world. I also wrote my own little story as an example. You can read it on my Instagram page if you haven't yet because this podcast isn't about me. But if you would like to know more about my story, I might do a Q&A one day, so let me know. Some of the stories you'll hear are very short, some were too long, but I hope you will enjoy them as I did. These stories will highlight some of your journeys as Sherios, and a lot of you probably share the same songs and will relate with one another's stories. Thanks for the people who wrote in. Now, let's start for the first story. This one is from Alice from Spain. My story is a bit complicated. I met Ed through the You Need Me, I Don't Need You music video, recommended by YouTube, and I really liked it. Back then, social media wasn't what it is now, so I kind of forgot about him, even though I liked him from the start. Years later, something terrible happened in my life, and I stopped doing everything I liked, including singing, and I lost the ability to feel. One day, in the car, I started humming Shape of You. So when I got home, I looked for Ed's concert and music videos, and from that moment on, I became a Sherio. Wake Me Up was my favorite. It started to become part of my daily life until I was able to go to Wembley to see him, and something in me clicked. And I started to feel again everything I hadn't felt in a long time. Ed saved my life, and because of that, I will never stop being a Sherio. Wow, thank you Alice for this story. I think it's a beautiful story. It's not complicated at all, and we really definitely can see how his life shows was like a turning point for you in your life. And I'm glad that Ed did help you, and he will stick with you forever now. Great. The next story is from Anushe. I don't know if the name is pronounced correctly, but she's from Pakistan. I first heard the A-Team in school and instantly loved it, despite not fully grasping the lyrics. People often talk about Ed Sheeran's fame, and when I moved to London, my curiosity led me to his concert at the O2. That experience marked a turning point for me. In 2023, I went from being a casual listener to becoming a true Sherio. It was during this concert that I rediscovered A-Team, a song I had never fully understood up to that point. Seeing Ed perform it live for the first time gave me chills. That night felt unlike any other concert I had attended. The atmosphere was incredible. Everyone was connected, swaying and dancing along with the music. It was a magical night, one of the best I've experienced. Ed's music started to deeply resonate with me, and Subtract was particularly moving. I had the chance to see him again in November at the Royal Albert Hall, but A-Team and Perfect will always hold a special place in my heart. Yay! Another moment when Ed Sheeran blows everyone's mind when performing his songs live. I love that story. Let's go to the next person. And the next person is Ashik from England, but originally from India. I became a Sheerio the moment I watched Ed Sheeran perform his song You Need Me, I Don't Need You on Songkick YouTube channel in 2012. At just 7 years old, when dealing with bullying, I stumbled upon the video in the school computer's room on a Friday afternoon during my ICT lesson. Ed's live performance with the loop pedal was mesmerizing and inspiring. Watching him create layers of music with just his guitar and the loop pedal was something I'd never seen before, and it brought a huge smile to my face. Earlier that day, I had seen a poster on the playground wall at school about free guitar lessons. I signed up immediately, and Ed's music ignited a passion in me, changing my life in an instant. I believe that exact moment was a pivotal in shaping my love for playing guitar, singing, and music as a whole. Oh, that's so cool. That's great, Ashik. Like, now you can play music, play guitar, sing, and that's all thanks to Ed. So brilliant, amazing. Keep on with the good work. Next story. This one is from Audrey from Tennessee, USA. I had heard some of Ed's radio hits before I became a fan, but I never really paid attention to them. One day at 13 years old, I was on the way home from a family vacation and Perfect came on. I remember being instantly in love with it and Ed's voice, so I added it to my playlist, but never really dug deeper into Ed's music. Until he came to my city 2 years later, in 2023. And I remembered that I really enjoyed his music. Then I started listening to it and I convinced my mom to take me to the show and sing Perfect, the song that started it all, live was a top 10 experience of my life. It truly was incredible. So ever since then, I've just been completely in love with his music and was able to see him at Boston Calling in May, and once again he was incredible. It's been 3 years now and I know all the words to all his songs, and I'm one of Ed's biggest fan and truly can't imagine where I'd be without him. Alright, so your song is Perfect. That's really cool that you were able to see him live then and enjoy his concert. So I really enjoyed your story. Thank you, Audrey. Next one. This story is from Brit and she lives in Belgium. I was home alone when I heard Bad Habits for the first time on YouTube. I'm obsessed with vampires, so obviously I thought the video was so cool and I watched it multiple times in a row, dancing to it while wearing sunglasses inside. I love the song so much, I even learned the lyrics by heart. This day was so special to me that I had to write about it in my diary. It was January the 27th. I still had the song in my head the next day, so I searched for other Ed songs and I found them so cool. That's how I started to become a fan of Ed Sheeran. In retrospect, as Ed would say, it wasn't not a sign. To be honest, I didn't expect to become a Sheerio, but half a year later, I tried to convince my parents to go to every concert. I'm so happy that I discovered this artist. His music is amazing, it makes me feel at home. Ed inspired me to follow my dreams, and now I finally feel like my life has a purpose. I hope other people enjoy his music too and can also find some peace. Oh, thank you, Brit. This was really sweet, and I love that she added like all those little colored hearts, smileys, and then like a vampire because she loves vampires, and a ginger guy with a mic and a guitar and a piano. Really nice. The next story is from Chloe, and she's French. In the early 2010, I was looking for ways to improve my English and discover new music. So I often watched the Brit Awards and listened to British local radio stations and shows. When I first discovered Ed, I didn't immediately fall for his music. However, I started listening to it more and more. I've always liked singers who have control over their music and write what they need to express. At the time, Ed was flooding YouTube with covers and posting lots of live performances. I've always been disappointed by artists who don't sound as good live as they do in the studio, but we all know how amazing Ed is with just a small guitar. That's when I really went down the rabbit hole. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly when I became a Cheerio, but I know which song sealed my fate. Back then, I had to take a 1.5-hour train ride every week. I didn't have an MP3 player and my smartphone had almost no internal memory. You had to buy mini SD cards. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford one, so I had about 10 megabytes of space. My options for listening to music were very limited. With just 10 megabytes, I could only fit about 12 minutes of music. Instead of choosing 3 or 4 songs, I picked a Warner Studio Live version of You Need Me, I Don't Need You. I'd listen to it on repeat for an hour and a half every week for months. I couldn't deny my Cheerio status when people saw this. I have no regrets though. Oh wow, Chloe, that's a little extreme to listen to the same song over and over. But I understand, I get it. That's my song too. I love it. She even signed at the bottom of the letter, La Folle du Train, which means the crazy lady on the train. Now it's David's turn from Pennsylvania, USA. I've been a fan of Ed Sheeran ever since hearing the A-Team, though I didn't know it yet. I was a sophomore in high school when it came out in the US, and I remember hearing it and thinking it caught my attention a lot more than any other song coming out at that time. It wasn't until Thinking Out Loud came out that I actually knew the name Ed Sheeran. I had tried listening to the rest of Plus and Multiply early on in college, but most of the rest of the songs didn't click. It wasn't until I heard Castle on a Hill that things started to change. I heard it on the radio and it instantly got to me. An anthem-like song about friends you had growing up and the memories of simpler times was something I didn't know I needed at that point. It was about everything I had been longing for the past 3 years. I just instantly fell in love with it and needed to hear more. Then I listened to Divide. I never thought a love song could be better than Thinking Out Loud, but he had somehow done it with Perfect. And I would listen to it over and over again, hoping one day I'd have that love. But I still wasn't what I would say a Cheerio yet. Fast forward to October-ish of 2018. I picked up a guitar for the first time. Most of the songs I learned on guitar were Ed Sheeran songs. The following year, I decided to watch a full live concert of Ed's Divide show on YouTube, and I was blown away. I was a Cheerio from that point forward. I had no idea he played the songs using just his guitar and a loop pedal. It was inspiring and impressive, especially as someone who had recently started learning guitar. I was hooked. So I guess you could say Castle on a Hill and then Bloodstream were the songs that made me a Cheerio. Basically, me becoming a Cheerio has been an evolving process over the last 13 years. Things like the A-Team, Castle on a Hill, and learning that he makes his songs live on a loop pedal have all been points that have made me the Cheerio I am today. I feel like each album is related to big events in my life. His albums have always felt like a look into the next 3 years of my life, and I think that, above all else, is why his music resonates with me the most. Oh, David, this story was longer than what I asked, but I think it's really cool. Now what you heard is the short version of the shorter version of his story. He said he wanted to write more and stopped himself. But the essential of his story is there, and if it's important to him to deliver his whole history and talk about each album and everything, I think it is still interesting. So I hope you liked it. Who else? This story is from Ehsan, and he lives in England, UK, but he's originally from Pakistan. The first time I heard Ed Sheeran was in 2009. He played a loop pedal version of The City live at Sticky Studios, and I was completely blown away by the talent I was witnessing. Seeing him beatbox and loop vocals and play guitar the way he was, I'd never seen done before like that. I would say I became a Shearer instantly from that point onwards. However, when hearing the A-Team in 2010, I fell in love with his music even more, and I knew that he would become a huge successful artist someday. My favorite song ever is I'm a Mess, and Ed has written a song for pretty much everything I've ever gone through, from family problems to being homeless to heartbreak and much more. So your song is The City. I love it. Great song, especially performed live. The next one is from Greg from Germany, but originally from England. I was 15 when the A-Team came out, and I remember my mom saying she loved it. But Ed was just another standard singer to us at that time. Until the music video for Photograph was released, just as I first met my girlfriend, now fiancée, in person. I must have listened to it on repeat for a few months. We had a long-distance relationship for about 2-3 years, and the song just fit us perfectly. So by the time Divide was released, Ed was my favorite singer. In 2018, I went to his concert with my girlfriend, mom and sister, which was the only concert of his I've been to, and I loved it. My girlfriend wasn't the biggest Ed Sheeran fan beforehand, but came out of it gaining a newfound appreciation for him. Her favorites from that night were Bloodstream and Photograph. In anticipation for the concert, I was also trying to learn to play perfect on the piano. I was blown away by the fact that on the day I proposed, One Life was announced. What are the chances? I'm not religious in the slightest, but reckon it must be fate. Our wedding is planned for 2025, and we have decided that our first dance will be the song Photograph. This story is so romantic. I love that, it's not really your own story, it's your story, including your mom, including your girlfriend, now fiancé, and maybe we'll hear from you again after the wedding when you will first dance on Photograph. That will be a nice moment, I think. Good song choice. Great. The next person is Hillary, and she's from Tennessee, USA. So Hillary says, I don't need you, and she writes this in italic. So I don't need you to even get me started on how much Ed has meant to my relationships with my niece. The first time I heard her rapping or singing with the flow along to Ed perfectly, I couldn't help but pay attention. Why, you ask? Because You Need Me, I Don't Need You and Don't. Sorry for throwing two songs into one, but I feel like the play on words makes it count as one. I am a huge Fish fan and a serious Swiftie, so Ed's amazing talent and him and Taylor being friends has always allowed us to bond over music. There are a few times in life you experience pure joy, and I got that when I took my niece to see Ed at Boston Calling. I should be proud of this, but when your niece introduces you to a lyric as good as "They say I'm up and coming like I'm in an elevator, 'cause you need me, man," is the man.
I'm Ed Sheeran!
Honestly, I didn't even know how to read this story because the play on words were in every sentence almost. And the swear words and stuff, I don't know if it's really podcast friendly, but really funny, really fun as well. Thank you, Hillary. Next one is from Jay from Kansas, USA. I knew I became a Sheerer when I heard the song Perfect for the second time, actually. The first time, I just thought, hey, it's just another one of those slow songs. But What I didn't know is how calm it made me, how different it affected me compared to all of those other songs. When I was listening to it for the second time, I was under a lot of stress and pressure. Perfect calmed me down, and that's what I needed at that moment. Ed helped me tremendously. When I heard all of his other songs, I knew that I finally found the artist I had been searching for all this time. His voice, his backstory, told me to never give up and keep going, teaching me lessons like, you can quit this bad habit and go on with the good one. Dig deeper into that goal. Once you reach the top of the large mountain, go reach the top of a larger mountain. He has taught me so much, and I knew from that moment on, I became Michirio. Oh yeah, Ed and his big lessons, his super good advice in life. There's always something you can save in your head when you're listening to him speak sometimes. And he often appears in these kind of videos, like millionaire videos, and they put this dramatic song in the background and put the captions in yellow. And really good story. Thank you. The next one is Karen from Illinois, USA. I've known of Ed since about 2012 when the A-Team was played regularly on US radio, but I honestly didn't pay him very much attention at the time. Oops! I do remember thinking that I liked both the A-Team and later Lego House very much. Fast forward a few years to 2014 when Multiplied was released. I heard Sing, the first single, and thought, this is a different sound for him. But I still didn't really pay any extra attention to him. My bad. A few months later, Thinking Out Loud was released. I remember first seeing the video before I knew the song or that it was by Ed. I quickly recognized him though and noted the tux as opposed to the hoodies I knew him to wear. That's when I also saw the tattoos on his arms for the first time. And I was very impressed by the ballroom dancing. He finally got my notice. Very soon after this, I was driving my then 8-year-old daughter to school. Thinking Out Loud was playing on the radio in the car. After Ed sang the line, "Kiss me under the light of 1,000 stars," she looked at me with wide eyes and said, "That's so pretty." And she was right, of course. That was the moment we both started really paying attention to Ed. In September of 2015, I took my daughter, then 9, to see Ed live. It was her first concert ever. I thought it would be a nice, chill first concert experience for her. I had no idea what his live show was like. None! It would be completely accurate to say that that night was when I truly became a Shiryu. I distinctly remember standing there in awe during Bloodstream. What was I witnessing? This was Ed Sheeran? I saw the crowd singing along to every song, dancing, and there was so much happiness. From that moment, I was hooked. 20 shows later, continuing to see Ed with my daughter, traveling across country and internationally to see him, and making so many amazing friends and memories along the way. I'm forever grateful for the little moment that built up to it all, and of course to Ed, without whom none of it would have happened. So, you took a while to notice Ed, but in the end, you got there, so that's what matters. That's really nice that you got to do this with your daughter as well. I think it's really cool. The next story is Carolina from Lithuania. The first Ed Sheeran song I've heard was the A-Team, and I fell in love with it instantly. But the entire Plus album is what made me a Shiryu. I was still a closet one, because nor my family or friends could understand my love for his music, so I had this feeling shut in. I kept it just for myself. until my friend invited me to go to Ed's gig in Warsaw in August 2022. It was my first ever Ed's gig and it gave me all the feels. Ed has songs for all the different moods, time and place. For example, after a breakup, I had myself up with Don't, I'm a Mess, and Bloodstream. When I had a huge crush, Give Me Love and Little Bird gave me comfort. When I lost my grandparents, A Fire Love and Supermarket Flowers helped me cope with my grief, especially visiting hours. After the gig in 2022, I found this community with lots of amazing Cheerios, and I'm always looking forward to the next gig and meeting these people again. Yes, this comes up a lot. Like, he has a lot of subjects and topics that are in his songs and all the different moods, like you said. And there are similarities between your stories now because he's with us and he's with you guys with every key moments in life and every step of the way. That's really, really cool. Now, the next story is a little different. This story is from Manon and she's French. I had spoken with Manon a little while ago because I wanted her story to be heard. This is a very important subject of inclusivity and I think it's important to talk about it. So listen up. Here is Manon speaking. Hello, I'm Manon. I'm 28 and live in the east of France, in the region called Franche-Comté. I'm happy to be here on the podcast to talk about what is important to me. Indeed, life was not easy for me. I was born with a genetic disease which made me deaf. I have hearing aids that allow me to hear, but I like to say that my eyes are my ears because I mainly read on lips, which means that I can't do without it. I can't answer the phone. Basically, I hear a voice, but I can't understand it because the person is not in front of me. I might as well tell you that music and me were very complicated in the past because I couldn't listen to the radio and identify the song. And whenever I liked a song, I had to go and learn the lyrics by heart to try to follow the singer. It required way too much concentration. One day, I was on my couch and my father had the radio on. I hated it because I couldn't identify the song without the image. Suddenly, the first notes of the song Shape of You came on and unconsciously I said,
Oh, Shape of You by Ed Sheeran.
And my dad was shocked and I started to cry with joy because it was the first time that I managed to recognize a song without the image and even from the first notes. And so I started to be very interested in this artist who had made this possible, Ed Sheeran. Since I discovered Shape of You, and which was the song that reconciled me with music, I started listening to all of Ed's songs, his albums, and the song that made me a Cheerio was Bad Habits. Regarding my disability, I grew up with a family who always considered me the disabled person in the family, the boring girl who was not going to succeed in life. Because of that, I hated myself and I had no self-confidence. One day, I was on Instagram and I was chatting with Thomas at Ed Sheeran Collector, and Aline, Teddy is the only one. And they encouraged me to create my own fan account where I could share my passion for Ed Sheeran. And as I love to laugh and make people laugh, I decided to focus on my account on creating memes about our favorite singer. The Cheerio Frenchie meme account was born in 2022, and I finally found my place in an incredible community. I regained self-confidence. I attended my first Ed concert in Paris at the Stade de France in July 2022, which was like a revelation to me. I remember it was the first time that I saw a BSL interpreter. I was really impressed by this performance and I followed the interpreter on Instagram. And during the first night of the last days of autumn at Royal Albert Hall, I saw this interpreter, so I decided to go meet her and thank her for what she does for the deaf community. The fact that she's deaf and a BSL interpreter is incredible to me. It made me so happy because I saw it as a first step for inclusivity in the music industry, as I often don't feel included because of my disability. So that meant a lot. Ed Sheeran has given me so much. A community where I feel accepted, where I belong, music that I can recognize and follow. It also developed in me an artistic sense, and I just wanted him to know how much he gave me. So back in September 2023 in Frankfurt, Germany, where I was lucky enough to be in the front row, I had a sign that said, "I'm deaf, but I can feel your music. You are my hero." And the smile he gave me this night was worth everything in the world. This shows that Ed Sheeran is not just a singer, he is a savior. Then Subtract came out, my favorite album. When I thought he couldn't surprise me anymore, he released the song Life Goes On. When I watched the music video, I had the impression that it was a mirror of my own life. Living with an anchor, so my disability, trying to move forward with it, and sometimes it's so heavy that we struggle. So I decided to have a tattoo on my leg. It represents an anchor with a chain topped by the sun from Life Goes On and the lyric along the chain. It finally shows that I have accepted myself as I am. And now I'm so happy to have made friends all over the world. It's also a lesson I give to everyone who didn't believe in me, like, "You need me, man, I don't need you." And Ed Sheeran pushes me to surpass myself and face my fears, like the times I traveled alone to see his concerts. Many thanks to Tina for sharing my experience. You are great. Keep up your exemplary work. And if you have any questions about my disability, know that it doesn't bother me at all to talk about it. Really, I think that the fact you can enjoy music still, thanks to Ed, is just magical. And I think it's really important to be aware of the different kinds of fans out there, and especially to try to include them more in everything. And that's why inclusivity is really important. And so if you don't know this yet, I did an update on the podcast. Unfortunately, it's only available for Apple Podcast users. It basically allows you to read the text, the script of the podcast while you're listening. So you have an option to press play and then the text will follow and it will play as you listen. You will read as you listen. And there's another option where you can see the entire script and just read the podcast. So this is good for people who have disabilities and have troubles to hear, but also if you're not comfortable with English at all and you prefer to read something and it will be easier for you to read, or you can't listen for some reason. Anyway, this is good for you, so go check it out. And I hope this will be helpful. The next story is also from a Frenchie and she's called Marie. I heard Ed songs thanks to my youngest daughter, like the A-Team or Shape of You and Sing. It's a song that makes the whole family go crazy, especially my husband. In 2022, my daughter suggested that we go see Ed at the Stade de France in Paris. I immediately accepted and saved up every month to pay for this concert for my daughters. I really wanted to make it a great mother-daughter outing in Paris, but I was going through a very difficult time. I had been harassed at work, so I was left vulnerable and I had started a new job in a hospital. Then COVID arrived, things weren't going well. I was under so much pressure. I was afraid of everything and health issues on top of that. Then I literally cracked. I had a burnout, which meant didn't leave my house anymore and didn't want to see anyone. But this concert was approaching and I took it upon myself because I really wanted to have a wonderful time with my daughters at Ed's concert on July 29th, 2022 at the Stade de France. I remember at the end, I said to my daughters, from now on we will go to all of his concerts. I've done a lot of concerts, but seeing Ed was magical and all my troubles went away at the show. I was on cloud 9. This show also gave me the energy I needed to get through my life. After that, my youngest daughter and I went to the Paris warm-up show in 2023, wearing t-shirts she had made for the occasion. We even made one for Ed. I came out of that concert feeling even more energized. Ed really made me want to get it through it. He really saved my life that night. I wanted to move forward. His music helped me so much because I could relate to his words, especially when Subtract came out and I was going through grief. But if I had to pick the song that made me a Cheerio, I'd say Bloodstream. Family Cheerios, love it, absolutely love it. By the way, if you're listening, I'm looking for my next guest who is a parent and became a Cheerio through their children. So if you think of somebody, please email me at cheeriotalk@gmail.com. Thank you. And the next story is from Mona in Germany. Hey y'all. Honestly, my story of how I became a Cheerio is a simple one. I've always been a huge Harry Potter fan, and as we all know, Ed got Rupert to be in his music video. When he started singing Lego House, I was immediately blown away of how incredibly smooth his voice was. It touched my soul in a way no artist has ever done before. I listened to that song in a loop that day, maybe 20 times or more. I was really sad that this guy only had one album. While digging for more, I found all the old stuff from before Plus. A few months later, I heard he was about to play a festival not far from my home. I managed to get a last-minute ticket and went there with some friends who were already going. I've queued up like 6 hours before the show. First during the day, it was scorching hot in the sun, so they sprayed water. When the sun went down, it became freezing cold, and I was wet and shivering. But as soon as Ed walked on that stage, I didn't feel a thing anymore except pure joy. He announced that day his new album, Multiply, was out. I went home, bought tickets for every show I could afford, and continued to do so till this day. Last month, 10 years down the line, I saw him play that very same festival where I first saw him live. Again, 2 days after the 10-year anniversary. He hadn't performed there for 10 years, but came back for the anniversary. I remembered standing there and crying when I first heard Tenerife Sea. I cried a little that day too. Lots of love. Oh gosh, Mona. When I was reading, I was picturing myself queuing in the cold, freezing to death, and the minute we saw Ed on stage, everything disappeared. And that feeling is so good. And after all, it's so worth it. Yeah, I totally get that. The next story is from Naz, and she's from Nepal. My Cheerio story began while taking a shower, and since then, my life has never been the same. And it's weird that I remember this so clearly as it was back in 2012. I always play random playlists on my phone while enjoying a shower, and Give Me Love was the song for me. I never even knew I had this song on my phone, but as soon as the first gentle strumming of the guitar began, I literally stopped my shower and just the first line of the song spoke to my soul. And I remember just crying, listening to the entire song. And as they say, the rest is history. And it has been 12 years of a roller coaster of emotions with Ed and his music. Naz, I love your story. and it reminds me of myself because I also like to listen to music when I'm taking a shower. I just let Spotify play whatever it wants, and sometimes I discover new tunes that I've never heard before, and I struggle to find the titles again after that because I wouldn't just stop the shower to find out. But now Spotify has a new feature, I think, and now we are able to go back to the history and see what we just listened to. So that helps a lot. Stephanie from Idaho, USA. She says, "My song is tight, without question. The way it suddenly stops into a calm, quiet moment to reflect the way you feel in your love's arms always leaves me breathless." We were so stoked to have won floor tickets to see Ed in Vegas, but unfortunately, it was cancelled as we were standing outside of the stadium. I am eternally grateful that I got to see his rescheduled show. I almost didn't feel like the show would happen, so when he came on stage singing Tides, I was completely overwhelmed and sobbed through the whole concert. Ed's music has been a companion that gotten me through the hardest medical years and hospital stays, taking on foster children, grief, and so many of life's ups and downs. Like he says, life is changing. Tides. I will always love that song. Oh, now we totally get why you picked Tides. I mean, it's really true. The roller coaster thing is true for life, it's true for a show. We always get through all these different emotions, and yeah, life tides. Now let's listen to Taryn's story. She's from Connecticut, USA. "My name is Taryn, and I have loved Ed Sheeran since I heard the A-Team back in 2012. I thought, this kid is going places. I was so amazed at the depth that this kid has in his lyrics at such a young age. Multiply was the album that made me sit up and pay attention with Sing, Don't, Tenerife Sea, and Bloodstream. Listening back to the first album, Kiss Me was the song that solidified my complete obsession with Ed. The song lyric and melody and the way you can hear the emotion in his voice, there is nothing better."
My heart's against your chest, your lips pressed to my neck.
Oh, perfect. I first saw Ed live at Gillette Stadium in the nosebleed seats. Live versions of Ed is a whole different level. The experience was truly life-altering. His music still speaks to me, and I still wish I knew how he knows the words to put to the feelings I have. I've seen him 5 more times since Gillette Stadium, and each time has been an experience of a lifetime. To sum up, Multiply was the album that put me on that path to Cheerio verse, and Kiss Me is the song that totally cemented my love for Ed. Seeing him live made me a total fanatic Cheerio. Thank you, Taryn. Oh, again, Ed and his beautiful lyrics. It gets us all the time. Guys, this was the last story. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you want more episodes like this in the future, please let me know. Send me an email, DM me, reach out. You can also leave comments on Spotify, on YouTube, under the post on Instagram. It's always a pleasure to connect with you guys. Thank you for listening, and goodbye. Till next time.